Hey everyone, Cleo here. This is my channel and today I'll be introducing a new video to it. So I've had this idea for a couple of weeks and I'm finally bringing it to fruition. So the idea I have is to create a sort of a series within my booktube channel of me discussing the book versus the movie. So I hope to be able to bring one of these videos every month. However, it'll depend if I read a book that has movie adaptation in that month and if I'm able to watch the movie as well, because I have considered doing these kind of talks about books that I've already read in the past. However, I don't know whether I'll be able to make this discussion as in-depth as I would be able for one that I've just read. I have considered maybe like going into a summary, so I'll still think about it, because I don't know whether I want to be rereading the entire Lord of the Rings, for example, in order to be able to do a Lord of the Rings book versus movie video. So who knows, I'll be thinking about that in the coming weeks. If you have an opinion about that down below, or any tips for me to be able to do it, or a good side with summaries, please let me know in the comments down below. But so today I will be giving you my Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban book versus movie showdown. Now, as you may have seen in my previous video, I've just finished Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban for the I don't know how many a time in the month of October, and I finished the movie this morning, so I'm now ready to do the in-depth discussion of both of them. So just for reference sake, we will be referencing Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I have just finished rereading it in the Spanish edition. And this is the original English one, but I thought I'd hold this one up for once instead of the Spanish one that I've been holding up for the last few times. And Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, the Warner Brothers movie adaptation by Alfonso Cuarón. Now, both of these I must say I find to be the best in the series, you know. Both the book I find to be one of the best books in the Harry Potter series, as the movie adaptation quite possibly might be the one that I prefer over all other movie adaptations in the series. So, what I've gone through is I've read the book, I've watched the movie, and while watching the movie I took notes on my phone of everything that I thought was different. And I'll try to put like a counter somewhere that tells you like, this is what I think is a nice addition to the movie, this is where I think the movie should have stuck to the book more. So, of course, the very first thing that I noticed about the movie adaptation of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is something that a lot of people have been commenting on, and that's the very first scene. So the movie opens up to a quite charming scene in which Harry is practicing magic at home, and Vernon Dursley is constantly coming into his room checking what this noise he's hearing, what's this light he's seeing. Now the problem with this is it's a charming scene in a way. I mean, I don't feel like it's the best comic relief scene that there is in the movie, but it's charming nonetheless and a nice way to start the movie. However, Harry is not supposed to be practicing magic at home. Now this could be nitpicking if it weren't for the fact that 5 minutes later in the movie it is even mentioned you're not allowed to do magic outside of school. So the movie itself already points out to how problematic it is that he is practicing magic in the very first scene of the movie. So yeah, I think there are many things to choose from there. Later on in the movie they do the like Book for Monsters thing, in which the Book of Monsters is like running around in the room. This is originally in the book done at the Dursleys' home, and that would have been a way better opener. Of course, you need a little bit more of introduction to that maybe, but still, I mean, I think it would have been manageable to do that, and it would have been better for consistency's sake. Second thing I want to point out is I absolutely love the Aunt March scene in the movie. I mean, it's good in the book, don't get me wrong, but it's superb in the movie. I think the acting is so spot on Aunt March, and then the entire situational humor of like her buttons popping up and hitting Dudley in the face and him falling down. It's just such a it's such a superb comedic scene that works so much better on the screen, or at least it goes beyond what the book has done with it and delivers a very superb scene. So in that case, I would say, yeah, the movie takes this one. Also, I really love the line in which like Uncle Vernon is like holding on to Aunt March and she's like, "Don't you dare let go," and he does, "Just let's go." Another scene in which I think the movie might have done a better job, I mean not necessarily better, but it does some very interesting stuff with the material, is the night bus scene. So the night bus scene to me is already great in the book. I mean, it has a lot of comedy into it, it introduces some of the main elements of the story. However, in the movie you have some nice comedic additions to it, like the slinking down of the bus going between two double-deckers. A lot of situational humor, for example, when the night bus ends up in London, it like bumps into a car, and I mean, it brings a lot of the magic and a lot of the humor from Harry Potter onto the screen, which I feel is something that was missing in some of the earlier movies. So another one that I want to give to the book is the Scabbers-Crookshanks rivalry. You know, Scabbers and Crookshanks are like Crookshanks is constantly running after Scabbers, and we see this at the very beginning of the Harry Potter movie. However, the whole introduction of how Scabbers was already not feeling so well before the introduction of Crookshanks is totally, they miss it totally, and they shouldn't have. You know, it's as simple as adding a line in which Ron is explaining his trip to Egypt and saying, yeah, sadly Scabbers was already starting to feel ill there, or something like that. I mean, it's not the greatest line in the world, but like, there's something to be done with that, and they leave it entirely out of it, and that is an important part of the book. But of course they really don't do much with the Scabbers-Crookshanks story. They don't even explain it later on in the movie. So this entire element is actually lost, and they only leave it in there to drive the other plot in a little bit later on. But this is something that I feel is really lost in the movie that was in the original book, and was a nice addition to the book. It introduced a lot of character dynamics because it introduces the entire rift that there is between Ron, Harry and Hermione on the other hand for a big part of the book. So in this case I would say the book has the angle on this. Another thing that I like, this is a general that I like a lot about the movie, is that it introduces a lot of the humor into it, on the one hand, but also that I feel it is better at doing the interactions between students. You know, in the book we're so focused on Harry, Ron and Hermione all the time that it seems like they're just like a clique on their own and have no interaction with other students, except for occasionally. And in the movie they do bring out more of this interaction. You have the interaction between the boys in like his dorm room and things like that, which at least brings these small moments in there that show that it's not just the Ron, Harry and Hermione show all of the time, which I feel like I'm missing from the books a lot. It's a general critique I have noticed in myself of the books later on, is the estrangement of Ron, Harry and Hermione from the rest of the school, even from the rest of their Gryffindor house. We are on to the scene in the divination class, I think it's called in English, right? Yeah, sorry, I just read the Spanish one, now I have to think about it. So we are introduced to the character of Professor Trelawney. And now I have no critique on either the book or the movie version, but I must say that the movie version is so great. Emma Thompson really steals that scene and puts so much humor into it, so much exaggeration into it, and that makes that character very lovable, whereas I feel in the book the character is very annoying. And I actually personally, and this is really a personal preference, prefer the movie version. So yeah, I'm giving quite a few to the movie, I see, which is weird for me, but I mean, I think we'll see where this goes, but I still think that the book overall is better. But there are some super nice additions that have been made to the movie that I feel make this a very good adaptation. So when we get to the hippogriff scene, the scene in which we are introduced to the hippogriff at first, I really like the fact that you know, Harry is the one who has to perform all of this because all the rest step back. You know, in the book you have kind of this Harry saying like, okay, I'll do it just because he wants Hagrid to have a good first class, which sure, it is in line with his character, but it's so much more funny in the movie, which just everybody steps back and Harry ends up being the volunteer, even though he didn't volunteer at all. So I prefer that version actually, just puts much of the humor back into it. Now, what I did find So this is at once a plus and a negative for the movie, is this hippogriff scene. So the plus is this volunteering of Harry part. The negative is the flying on Buckbeak part. I find that scene to be so cringeworthy. I'm sorry, but Daniel Radcliffe's not so good at the exuberantly happy or extremely angry scenes, I feel. At least not at that part in his career. And that whole scene was just so... I cannot watch that scene. When I watch that scene, I just need to laugh, and it's not laughing with the alongside the movie, but it's laughing with it. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So, and also at the end when he's like spreading his arms on top of the hippogriff, it's so reminiscent of the Titanic. And yeah, that scene just goes way too far in my opinion. It's not humorous or charming or lovely or whatever. It's just ridiculous. Sorry. Which seamlessly brings us to the next scene, the boggart scene. First of all, what is Malfoy doing in there? But sure, he has a good line in there, so whatever. But this scene is super fast. I mean, it's a very funny scene, and even in the movie it's still funny, but it's so short. Like what you see, 2 students, you could have really made a montage of more students easily. I don't think it would have taken away too much from the movie. And then you have that whole thing where Harry is introduced, he's the first in line, and this takes forever for Lupin to see this in any case. And then when the boggart changes into the Dementor, only then does Lupin like stand in front of him. Which makes no sense. In the books he does it immediately when he sees Harry stepping up, because he fears that Harry's boggart will change into Voldemort. But here he is actually too late to the scene. So it's, I mean, you could still see the whole like, okay, he does it because he thinks Harry's boggart is going to change into Voldemort thing, but it makes less sense than it did in the book. It's less obvious. You really have to explain it in order for you to know it. And, okay, this element I'm gonna get to the end. Okay, then I absolutely love one of the jokes that I introduced into the movie, which is, so when the fat lady is attacked by Sirius Black, and they don't know yet what has happened, and they are standing on the staircases, when Ron is saying like, I guess Neville has forgotten the password again, and Neville is standing right behind him saying like, hey! I absolutely love that little scene, and it's a very charming piece of humor that they added on to it, so another plus for the movie. Okay, another thing that I want to address, I'm not going to give it a plus or a negative because I'm on the fence about this one, is the happiness can be found even in the darkest of time if one can only remember to turn on the lights. Quote that is given to Dumbledore. This is not a quote from the book, this is one that they added into the movies. It has become so much canon that everybody believes that it's in the books, and it's one of the most quoted quotes. Okay, this is not a good way to say it. So it's one of the most mentioned quotes from Harry Potter. It is found on a lot of merchandise and things like that, which is fine, it's part of the movie, so it's still Harry Potter universe, I guess. But I'm not sure what I feel about the quote, you know. At first you think, oh, what a nice quote, but however it's also a very transparent quote. It does not have a depth of it, it's not like a metaphor to anything. It's a metaphor, but it's a metaphor that's so easy to pierce through that I don't know what I feel about it. I like it, but yeah, it is also a bit on the corny side. So I'm not gonna give a score on this one because I just haven't made up my mind about it. Please let me know what you feel about the quote. Are you in favor? Do you love it? I mean, I can definitely see people loving it. I cannot make up my mind about that quote. Okay, what I really give to the books once again is, so it's mostly that I just feel that the movie didn't do a good job with it, is the Quidditch scene in which Harry sees Sirius. Now here he sees the Grim in like the clouds, which is a very nice, it's like cinematographically, it's a very nice frame. However, I do feel it is better in the book where it's really Sirius coming to watch Harry. This is more of like hindsight thing, in which at the end of the book you're like, oh great, Sirius wanted to, if you reread it when you already know it, it's like, oh, Sirius wanted to see his godchild perform at Quidditch, and so you lose that in the movie. Another thing I'm giving to the book is Harry's reaction upon learning that Sirius betrayed his parents. Harry's crying in the movie. First of all, I don't think Daniel Radcliffe does crying very well. I mean, I'm sounding very negative over Daniel Radcliffe. I like Daniel Radcliffe, but Daniel Radcliffe is good at like the medium spectrum of like awkwardness, normal social interaction being slightly weird and things like that, which I feel overall he is, but I don't feel like he has super big emotional range. And so his crying, at least he's invisible while they're during this scene, but I don't feel it fits in, you know. In the book he's super angry, and I like angry Harry in any case, so maybe it's because of that, but I feel like his anger is more appropriate than his crying about it. I mean, sure, he has lost his parents when he was very young, but he also has no memory of his parents, and I mean, this is just me thinking this, but I wouldn't think that learning that his parents were betrayed would make him feel sad, it would make him feel angry, right? Or is that just me? So yeah, crying Harry I'm never in favor of, and especially not in this scene. And then what I absolutely need to give to the books, because I really hate this scene in the movies, is the Patronus charm lesson with Lupin. First of all, I like, in the book scene I just like how every single time Harry faints, wow, my voice is going. So every single time that Harry faints, you're introduced to a little bit more of the moments in which Harry's parents die. It's like, it's your first real encounter with their deaths, you know, except for the first chapter or something. You're really, it's the first time in which you're shown so much of the particulars of that death. And so you lose that entirely in the movie. I can understand why. I mean, there's no time for it. I can understand that. However, when he has to choose like his happy memory, the memory that they choose in the movie is so corny. It's not a memory. It's just, it just draws so much attention to the, yes, I lost my parents and now I'm a sad little boy, part of the story. Whereas I feel that that is not really emphasized in the books ever. And the memory that is in the book, which is the first time that he learned that he was a wizard, that he had magical powers, that he was, that he didn't belong in the house of the Dursleys, where he's always felt like he didn't belong, is such a more, is a much more powerful memory. It's also the essence of the book. So yeah, I definitely need to give this to the book. I hated that scene when I saw it in the movies. I still do when I resaw it now. Alright, we've gotten to one that I kind of find difficult to make my mind up about, and that is the scene in which Harry sees Peter Pettigrew on the Marauders map. In parts I like the scene because it is a bit of like a foreshadowing. In the book we only know about like Peter Pettigrew still being alive in the Shrieking Shack scene, and it's nice to have this foreshadowing earlier on. I do feel that that's a nice addition. However, in part it might also be taking away some time that could have been spent on elaborating, for example, the Shrieking Shack scene. But I will still give it to the movie just because of the element of foreshadowing, which is nice. Also it shows, it addresses like the criticism of nobody seeing Peter Pettigrew on the Marauders map, even though they have that map lying around forever. But so I will still give it to the movie. I like that the element is there. However, I would say that in the movie, if it came down between adding this scene and elaborating some other scenes, maybe they should have gone for elaborating some of the other scenes. Another element. Right, so now we are at the previously discussed Shrieking Shack scene. Now, this just goes way too fast. I don't know if you see this in the movies, whether it's confusing or not. I definitely think that there are a lot of elements that are introduced into the Shrieking Shack scene that are never addressed in the movies, and so you never know about them. The entire thing about Sirius, Lupin, Remus and James sharing their childhood in Hogwarts, not discussed. which also means that like when Lupin is addressing the Marauder's map, he does clearly indicate that he knows the map, but it's never addressed that he's one of the creators of it, that the group of four is actually the creator of the Marauder's map, that they spend time together, that the Shrieking Shack was made in order for Lupin to be able to spend his time there, that they all became animagi because of him, that they are animagi, that Harry Potter's father, that James Potter is used to be a, what do you call it, like a deer, it's not a deer but the male version of it, a stag, yes, that James Potter was a stag as an animagi, oh my god, I cannot say this word, animagus, and so that when you later on see a stag as Harry's Patronus, that means that it is his father. I mean, there's so many elements that are introduced into the Shrieking Shack scene in the book, or addressed later on, but foreshadowed in that scene, that are not addressed in the movie at all, and all of those elements disappear. The animosity that Snape has towards Harry is very much emphasized again in this part, because you get more of his backstory with James Potter. I think that is my biggest criticism of this movie. I mean, I don't know whether I realized it when first seeing the movie. I like the movie a lot, and I still think it is probably one of the best movie adaptations of a Harry Potter book. However, this is a huge chunk of the backstory of Harry Potter that disappears entirely. And so, yeah, I'm left to wonder at some points, this backstory needs to play some role, right? Or is it really just an enrichment to the story in the books that doesn't play a central part? Have to see that when I get to later books, I guess. But so, yeah, I definitely feel like that. I mean, we're seeing Sirius in the Shrieking Shack. Harry immediately overpowers him. How? And like 2 seconds later, Lupin walks in. Even though in the books there's more time in there. There's a little bit more time in which Harry is considering killing Sirius Black, and then Remus and Sirius have more time to explain the backstory before Snape walks in, and then. It doesn't make sense in the movie, I feel, that Harry is immediately overpowering Snape. In the book it makes more sense, because you're already starting to doubt the story that has been going around about Sirius Black. And so in the movie it's more like Harry stops Snape just because he wants to know what's really going on, rather than he's already doubting whether he has a true story, you know. Also in the book, all three of them attack Snape instead of here just being Harry. So it once again puts more of the spotlight on Harry, which I feel is sometimes a bit of a... I don't always like how everything revolves around Harry, even though there's a reason for it, but still. Yeah, so the Shrieking Shack scene for me is a definite no on this side of the movie adaptations. It is way too fast for such a crucial scene in the book. It establishes nothing within the relationship between Sirius and Harry, and so it's very weird when right after Sirius is talking to Harry about moving in, and he says yes. I already find this weird in the book. I already find in the book that there is a way too swift change of opinion on the side of Harry towards Sirius, but in the movie it's really, I mean, there's no reason why Harry would side with Sirius so fast after he knows nothing about Sirius. Why is he willing to move in with Sirius? Yeah, I find this a defect in both the books and the movies, but at least the rest of the Shrieking Shack scene definitely goes to the books. Then the time turner thing. I will give once again a point to the movie here, because I like the fact that Ron is present when they start using the time turner. It adds a very nice element, and when he comes back, when they come back, he's there. You can see he's confused, but at least he was present in it. You know, the interaction there is very nice. Also, the way in which they visualize the going back into time, with like really showing how time revolves around them, is very nice, and I think would have been nicer if it somehow would have gotten into the books. Okay, so I mentioned this earlier, but this is a scene that I feel it's a nice addition in parts, and I understand why they have it, but the time that they spent on this they should have spent in the Shrieking Shack, and that is the scene in which Harry and Hermione have an encounter with the werewolf in the forest. In the book this is briefly alluded to, so Harry and Hermione are waiting, and then they're like, hey wait, isn't this where Lupin will later run off to? Let's get out of here. But in the book, in the movie, this doesn't happen. They draw the werewolf to them to save Harry, and then they have to kind of run away from the werewolf. I understand this. I mean, it makes movie sense. You know, it's a thrilling scene. It's kind of scary and things like that. So it's nice to add to the movie. However, seriously, you needed that time for the Shrieking Shack scene, so I cannot give this one to the movie. This one stays with the book. And then, okay, so I don't have any further things. I will just say some general opinions about things that are done in the movie, and something I will give to the movie at the moment, though I'm not sure. I would have to reread the book to see whether this is also done in the book, is the use of, is the way in which time is present throughout the movie. You know, there are a lot of elements of time. You have the giant clock pendulum swinging a lot of the time. You see the rotors of the clock running, turning a lot of the time. Even in the Patronus charm scene, you're seeing planets revolving and things like that. So time is always made very present, very literal. It really becomes a character in the movie. The seasons changing is also something that, first of all, I like, and it might seem something that is, you know, that has no meaning. So you always have a scene in which you see the change of the season being represented. But this is also very literal. It is emphasizing how time is passing. And so I like how time has been given like a sort of physical presence. How is it? Sorry. So I like how time has been given sort of physical presence, how it becomes a character in the movie. And I would have to reread the books to see whether there are elements like this present throughout the book or not, or whether it's just the foreshadowing of Hermione's time traveling that is in there. But if it is just like that, then I feel the movie gets this. So this goes to the movie because it's first of all resulting in some very beautiful cinematography, and but it is also just so interesting to really have time present there, literally, for us to later on see how time is indeed very much a central part of this story. And then what I definitely like about these movies, which for me set them apart from the rest of the Harry Potter books, is first of all, it's the first one that goes so dark, and I really mean dark literally, like the cinematography is very dark in it, and at the same time it's the one that has so much humor into it. It really does a very good job at mixing the darkness of the story with the humor that is central to the Harry Potter plotline. Something that I forgot to mention in my discussion of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, so that has nothing to do with the movie versus book adaptation, is the scene in which Dumbledore is saying, if all goes well, you will be able to save more than one life tonight, which is such an interesting line when you think of it, because when you're introduced, when this line is shown, you're all thinking, okay, so if all goes well, he will save more than just Sirius Black. However, what Dumbledore is actually saying is, if all goes well, you will be saving more than Buckbeak tonight, because he knows that they've saved Buckbeak, because he was there in the Buckbeak showdown to see that Buckbeak got saved. So this is just such an interesting element, and I think such a masterful one, in which how one line can be seen in two different ways, and you only see the second way when you reread it. Okay, so I probably can go on and on about this book versus movie thing here, but I will stop here. I need to edit my video first in order to see which one won out, and then I will redo this, then I will shoot my conclusion for this book versus movie adaptation video. Alright everyone, welcome back, though you haven't left, but okay. So I've edited my video in the meantime and I've seen the results and I'm happy because they reflect what I assumed, which is that the book went out, so yay, where is it? Yay! Celebration for the book. Overall I still have to remind again that I really love the movie. I think the movie is one of the best Harry Potter adaptations that is out there. But yeah, it just leaves out too many crucial parts to me. And I'm also maybe gonna have to think about a system in which I give more weight to certain things, because I think the movie won a lot of points on like small things, on adding certain elements to it that I liked, on being able to bring a very nice interpretation to certain scenes, bring certain scenes to life. But where it lost on was on certain crucial parts to the story being left out. And I felt like certain parts of those at least had a much heavier weight than the addition of a certain joke would be or something like that. So maybe I need to think about possibly for certain elements being like, okay, this has more weight, so I will add 2 points to the book or the movie for that one. So, but because the book won out in the end, I didn't decide to do this yet for this one, because in any case it won out. I think the score for the movie ended up being very nice, because the movie does add certain certain elements to it that I like, and has been able to bring certain elements to the foreground that were not really as elaborated in the book as they were in the movie. Yeah, please let me know down below what you think about the movie adaptation for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Do you like the movie and maybe even prefer it to the books? And definitely point out certain elements that I haven't brought up for which you feel like they should also be discussed, or if you have a different opinion about one of the elements that I've mentioned in this video, definitely let me know. So I hope you've enjoyed this first episode of the book versus movie showdown. I'm hoping to continue it every month. I don't yet know for the month of December, because my November TBR does not include books that have movie adaptations. However, perhaps I can revert back to one of my October books, because I read A Discovery of Witches and I'm watching the TV show, and I'm guessing that the final episode will be somewhere in November. So I can, yeah, that'll probably be my December book versus movie showdown, is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. Okay, so see you next time. Bye!